Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news as Ruben Amorim promises more change and suffering at Manchester United. More honesty, more dissection of the problems and more admission that there will be more games like Ipswich as we look to take Manchester United back to the promised land. He also spoke about the issues up front and why he did what he did, but why it's a problem. Openly speaking about Rashford and his limitations up front and why there probably will be more changes, understandable changes, as we look to get back to where we need to get to. Some very interesting words from Ruben Amorim. We're also going to talk about some of the Monday night football that's been spoken about by Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville. I'm sort of like, they seem to change their opinion like the weather, to be honest with you. They were up his arse last week talking about top four, and now they're saying only a fool would talk about top four. I think there's a lot to get into on the show tonight, of course. But the main thing I want to start off with is talking about Ruben Amorim saying that there will be more suffering. There will be more bad results effectively. And it's not an unintelligent thing to say. It sets expectations, and if you exceed those expectations, you look good as a manager. But I like the fact that we have a manager coming into this football club who's being very open and honest about the issues that we've got. So lots to get into. I want to talk about the striker situation, and I really want to dissect a few things as well, and obviously some of your comments too. But before we get into that, I just want to say a big shout out to Manscaped. It's Monday night. They're sponsoring our show tonight. You can scan the QR code next to me, or you can go through the link in the description. You'll get 20% off with the code TUS20, and you'll get free worldwide shipping with that code as well. Remember, Christmas is coming. Gifts or a gift of yourself, get into it. But even more exciting, that they've got Manscaped's latest innovation is the Chairman Pro Electric Foil Shaver. It's a game-changing tool that brings the luxury of a professional shave right into your home, whether you're after that daily silky smooth finish or prefer to maintain a rugged 5 o'clock shadow. The Chairman Pro is your go-to for precision and style. It features 2 interchangeable skin-safe blade heads using the skin-safe 4-blade foil for a clean, smooth shave, or switch to the skin-safe stubble trimmer to keep your stubble sharp and polished. It's got flex adjusted technology, waterproof design, and it's got powerful performance as well. So head over to manscaped.com and join over 11 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by using the code TUS20 for 20% off plus free wide shipping. Plus you can get everything else as well. You can get the one that does it down there, the lawnmower, trim the grass to make the yard look bigger. Fantastic products delivered to your door with 20% off and free worldwide shipping. So check it out. Fantastic stuff. Oh, I also just want to go, we don't normally do this sort of stuff, but I do want to just shout it out. A couple of things as well. Thank you everybody who watched my interview with Tony on Webby O'Neill's channel. Loved doing them sort of things. Was very happy to go on. Some very, blunt questions, but I don't mind. Nothing to hide. Let's get, I'd like to do more of those things, and thank you very much for them having me on. You can check that out on their channel. I know a lot of you have watched it as well, which is great. And also I just want to give a shout out to Cadbury's as well. Some of you might have seen it over the weekend. The Man United women's game against Chelsea got rescheduled. So Cadbury's paid for the coach, the supporters coach, to go down there. And not surprisingly, supplied free chocolate as well. But I think that's always a good thing when a brand steps in and works with fans. So big shout out to Cadbury's on that one. Not only do they make delicious chocolate, but they're also now thinking of the fans as well. So big shout out for that. Always like to see fans being put first, because it doesn't always happen. Right, let's get into the show. So I want to start off with some of the words of our manager, Ruben Amorim. We'll talk about, well, actually, let me just read you this first. This is something I just want to just drop and then maybe we can come back into. He said, speaking about Manchester United's creativity problems yesterday, he said the main thing is they tried. We lost some balls. We played with Rashford up front and we lost physicality and the ability to hold the ball up. I think straight away, before we get into the more pain and suffering, is this not another indication of a manager that is just willing to shoot from the hip and tell the truth? Look, whether it's Ten Hag, Mourinho, Ollie, they haven't told the truth. They've kept the truth inside, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. Everybody's got a different style, but I think the most refreshing coach we've had at this football club in the last 10 years since Sir Alex was actually Rangnick, and yet he got some of the worst results. But he told the truth, and I think we can handle the truth. It's like A Few Good Men, Jack Nicholson. You can't handle the truth. Just tell me the truth. And we've been here longer than Amorim. We've been here longer than Rangnick. We've been here longer than Ollie. We know the truth and we can handle the truth. And what we don't want to do is be lied to and bullshitted to. And I do just wonder, Amorim will have people around him. You've got to have a strategy with the United fan base, and his strategy at the moment is quite clearly to be honest and open and not bullshit. And we don't need to hear about like, oh, everything is going to be fine and, you know, everyone's trying really hard and it's a clean, fresh slate. I think we need the answers, and we need the answers quick, because we need the solutions, and we need the solutions quick because we already know the issues. And I think we're going to see a lot of change. I mean, look, I want to talk about what he said about suffering and etc. like that, and how we probably are going to see more results like Ipswich. I predicted that this morning. But what I like about what he said about this, and he said it to DAZN, by the way, it wasn't on Sky or a Man United interview. He said this: the main thing is that they tried, we lost some balls, we played with Rashford up front, and we lost physicality and the ability to hold the ball up. I know that, you know that. I could have told him that last week. I could have told him that last month. I could have told him that last year, because I watch Man United every week like you do. And I think if you can give Rashford chances in the box like we did with Ahmad, he will score goals. He scored one goal every just over 3 games for United in his whole career. Played about 285 Premier League games, scored 80 goals, so or 85 goals. So he will score you goals if you can create chances for him. But he's not physical enough. He's not very good at pressing. He's not very good at linking up the play. And that's exactly what Amorim is saying there. And I think we're going to have to experiment a lot. It's not just going to be in that position, but Rasmus must be given a go. Xerxes must be given a go. Maybe bloody, maybe Wheatley or Obi Martin should be given a go. I mean, I look at that striking position, and I look at what he did with Gyökeres, and I think Rasmus is the guy to give a really good go to. But I think you've got to try things out. I've got no issue with him trying Rashford out, but he will obviously want to see through his own eyes what's going on. But I knew he wouldn't hold the ball up well. I knew he's not physical enough. And I think we all know that he's not going to run the channels, but he might be somebody that can get on the end of a cross for Ahmad, but is that going to be enough for you? So I don't think he was pointing out Rashford as a problem. I think he was pointing out the limitations. I think we'll see Rashford play behind the striker. And my point is not to talk about Rashford again, because we spoke about that this morning, and we spoke about Casemiro this morning. I want to speak about the changes that we're going to see. I think we're going to see experimentation. I think we'll see Rashford play behind the striker. I think we'll see Rasmus play up front. I think we might see Garnacho play out wide. I think we'll see Ahmad play behind the striker. I think when you look at that side, we saw Casemiro and Eriksen. I think we'll see Mainu and Agate. We might see Agate and Casemiro. I think we saw Mazraoui and Luke Shaw playing in the back 3. We might see them playing out wide. We might see Delot playing in the back 3. So I think there's going to be a lot of experimentation and a lot of change. And I think that's what I read from what Amorim was saying there about Rashford up front not having the physicality and the hold-up play. Experimentation will have to happen. He's not going to land on the solutions. He's playing look, and I think this is so important to keep it in your head. And I said this before the Ipswich game. The team he picks for Ipswich is not going to be his best team. He's going to make mistakes. He's going to learn things. He's going to move people around. As we know from what we were talking about in the international break, he likes players who can play in multiple positions. He likes players that can play in 2 or 3 positions. So you've got to be played in 2 or 3 positions. And obviously this is a new formation for everybody. It's a new idea for everybody. And therefore we're going to have to, there's going to be a lot of trial and error, of course. Maguire to return to the mighty Reds soon, says Red Army. I actually think, Harry, you know what? I've said this before, and I know it's not really going to be a massive topic of conversation, but I do think that Maguire might get some game time in a 3. His lack of pace might not be a problem. Johnny Evans played there yesterday. I do think that Maguire will get game time. I've said that before. I wouldn't be surprised if he did. Ineos trying to increase the sellability by playing, says Siraj. Amorim speaking the truth is refreshing, says Patrick Lynch. It makes us as fans feel like we aren't crazy. The issues are evident, and that makes it easier to be patient. And that, Patrick, is exactly why Rangnick was so valued by us, is because he felt like somebody was giving us a voice. Somebody was actually saying what the issues are, and Amorim's done a lot of that in the last week. Ryu, welcome to the Members Club. You're an absolute legend, mate. Thanks for getting your badge in. Hi, Mark. Love your show, says Rene. Slide into my DMs if you want to do an explosive interview on Ten Hag. Also available if you're looking for a new moderator. Thank you very much, Rennie. Heck. I just realised what that's all about there. And Double D says, some of these players don't have the football intelligence to work this new new system and have no respect for the badge, club, history, or the fans. Buckle up because the roller coaster ride has started. Ineos, your man. Now back them. Back your man. Double D again. Couple of good comments from you in the last couple of days. Loving that. And you know what? I want to talk about what Gary Neville and Carragher have said because I think that's interesting, and we'll bring that a little bit later into the show. But look, I'm not naming any players here, but there will be some players at this football club who, when the game is over, will have a mentality of, I'll get paid either way. However I play, I'll get paid either way. And that's what you need to root out. Lindsay, thank you very much for your super chat. Appreciate that. So he's also gone to say on this, it's hard to explain, basically saying this, Amorim basically was saying that he was happy with the effort, especially in a 3-4-3 system, that it was their first time of using it off minimal training sessions. But he said it's hard to expect anything now. It is like not a surprise because you have to see it in the game. That is why I was a little bit anxious because you cannot understand what will happen in the game, and I felt that. What I understand today is that they are trying, they are really trying. They stay in positions, they receive information, and they try to use it in the game. That is very important. But we are going to suffer for a long period, and we will try to win games. This will take time. Even in the difficult moments, I felt they were doing the things we said for them to do. I know it's frustrating for the fans, but we are changing so much in this moment with a lot of games. We're going to suffer. And we will try to win games, and this will take time. But I know we have to still try and win games. We could lose this game if it wasn't for Onana. We have to understand that and think and be pragmatic that these guys had 2 days training to change so much. So I think that I'm very much happy about what he's saying there. That there will be we could have lost if it wasn't for Onana. I think we all know that. But we're going to suffer for a long period, and we will try to win games during that period. I don't think you could get a more honest and realistic statement than that. And I think it's a brave statement. I really, really do, because I contrast that with something Jamie Carragher said tonight, and he said, look, ultimately United have got to be competing for the title, and I think those sort of things really just don't help. And then he went on to say, look, Amorim comes across really well, but the main question is whether he can get results on the pitch. And I worry about the media, because he goes on to say it's not a great result at Ipswich, who should have won the game as a promoted team. There's lots of work to do, but the way they set up already looks like it will suit certain players. But I worry about the media, and I think we have to worry about the media, because they have got columns to sell. They have got shows to get people to viewing, and Man United, as we know, are the A-star ticket, whether it's sack the manager, back the manager, whatever. There's always got to be an angle with Manchester United. And I have seen a few people talking about the 3-4-3 already. That Pratt, Danny Murphy was talking about it on Match of the Day too. Carragher's talking about results there. And I'm not saying that they're, laying the bed to start putting pressure on Amorim, but I don't want their opinion on he needs to get results. I don't think he does. I actually don't think he does. I think we're past all that. I think most Man United fans are mature and intelligent and realistic enough to know that we don't actually want a manager to come in and bounce high in the sky with 4 or 5 wins out the first 6. We don't want a manager to come in and go and beat Arsenal and then lose a month later to somebody like Southampton. What we actually want is a long-term strategy to take this club back to the top with consistency. And I don't see a team that's anywhere near to do that. I mean, I know we use the cliche of Rome wasn't built in a day, and the best structures take time, but that is what we are. And we must resist with all the repellent that we have, the whole he's got to get results thing, because he's saying that himself. We will suffer. It's going to take a long time. We do need to win games during that time, but we will suffer. And what is suffering? What does he mean when he says we're going to suffer? It's going to take a long time, but we need to win games. What he's saying is we need to try and win as many games as we can during this period where we're going to suffer. What that means to me is we need to beat Everton, need to beat Bodo Glimt, need to beat Forest in the next few weeks. Arsenal, we might suffer. Bournemouth before Christmas, we need to win at Old Trafford. Man City and Spurs away, we might suffer. Wolves and Newcastle over Christmas, we need to win, because Liverpool away in the early start of the year, we might suffer. That's what I think he's talking about. I don't think he's talking about as not winning any games for the next 3 months. I think what he's talking about is as we climb this slow, steep hill of improvement and structure and strategy, we will inevitably fail, because we aren't even good enough at the moment to take on a relegation team like Ipswich, who are far better organised than us because they've had 3 or 4 months of a season to be organised. We're trying to do something that, look, I know Emery did it. Emery did it at Aston Villa, but Aston Villa are not Manchester United. We must resist this whole, he's got to get results. He's got to get, Jamie Carragher saying ultimately Man United have got a challenge for titles. Hello, Jamie. You played for a team that said that and didn't do it for 30 years. Jurgen Klopp wasn't expected to challenge for the title in his first 2 years at Liverpool. So why is the word title even being mentioned after 1 game for Amorim? I will fight this. I think many people will fight for it as well. We must fight for this. We must fight for the time, patience that is required. And I would like to applaud the fan base, actually, because I think sometimes we're divided, we're split. That's inevitable. But I think the vast majority of people have woken up this morning and just gone, you know what? I'm actually quite comfortable with that yesterday, because it's not what I don't know. It's not a shock. We didn't suddenly get worse. We are what we are. We are inconsistent, and we have a bunch of players that aren't good enough. So I think that when Amorim says that there's going to be suffering, and I'm telling you there's going to be change, you can pick up on that. I think from yesterday, we'll probably never see Casemiro and Eriksen start in a Premier League game for a long time unless we've got an injury crisis. I think Agate's coming into that team for the Everton game, and if he stays fit, I think he's going to play every week. I think Mainu could do the same. I think the back three will never have Johnny Evans and De Ligt and Mazraoui in it again unless we get injuries. I think we're going to see Maguire. I think we're going to see Yoro. I think we're going to see Martinez with De Ligt and maybe Martinez, Luke Shaw as well. We may never see Rashford play up front again as the starting striker. He might play in a different position or might end up on the bench. So I think we're going to see a lot of change, but I don't expect. If you want to go to the Emirates and win, and you want to go to the Etihad and win, and you want to go to Anfield and win, and you want to go to Spurs and win, then you've got to go there with a team that's capable of doing that. And he hasn't got a team capable of doing that at the moment because he doesn't know what his best 11 is. He hasn't got a clue what his best 11 is. I don't know what it is. You don't know what it is. And to find his best 11, you normally have 4 weeks of pre-season where you go to the States and you try 4 or 5 things. He's going to have to try them in competitive games. Bodo Glimt, Plazen, these games are really important to us because they're competitive games that he can almost treat as pre-season games. Obviously, we need to try and get a result, but they are actually going to be really important to try many things out. And he's got to try as many things out as he can in competitive scenarios because there is no time to do anything else. And I actually think the 3-4-3 is not controversial at all. I think the 3-4-3 is actually the rigidness and the fact that he's not. I've said this before, and we've heard it from Portuguese fans. Amorim is not tactically flexible. He just works relentlessly for the 3-4-3. And I think that that's quite a good thing because every training session, they're just going to be working on it all the time. They don't have to think about anything else, which I think will be positive. I did not like the Tony show. Felt like he belittled you for working for TalkSport. Really not a big deal. Should not have to explain yourself, says Lindsay. I enjoyed it, mate. You can check it out, mate. I don't care. Look, we operate in a world where people spread lies and bullshit about you, and some people don't like what you do. But I don't mind answering the questions. I've never been worried about that. I quite like doing those thoughts. I like Tony, so I don't care if people. I said to him before the interview started, ask me anything. You can ask me anything. You can ask me about players I've been in contact with, accusations about being a Forest fan and nonsense about Seg and, why did TalkSport? I don't care because there's nothing to hide. And I'm happy to keep doing those sort of things. I quite enjoy them. I love doing this more, but I quite enjoy those sort of things. Welcome to the Members Club, Carl, and he's backing the players on camera. Don't worry, he knows the problems, and he's doing a statement like that. Imagine what he's saying behind closed doors to them, says Vita. Thanks as always, Mark. Come on, United, says David Sherwin. And Alan Noonan says, he is a coach that does not believe in quick suctions. He believes in the system he wants, says Alan Noonan. Rashford is bone idle. Call lad a prat, please, says Junior. Lindsay Charlton, thank you very much for your super chat there. Double D, we've read his as well. Well, let's just get into some of the reaction to the weekend. I mean, I saw Alan Shearer saying that Casemiro and Eriksen are two players that probably should be quite worried. No shit, Sherlock. I mean, I think we all know that Casemiro and Eriksen are two players that are probably going to struggle. But Gary Neville went a little bit further. I think that there was a few things that he came out with I thought that were quite interesting. And he was asked about, is there going to be a short-term plan? And he said that at the end of the game, we saw the stat about running, and it showed that United had done 102 kilometres, which is pretty low. And he mentioned the lack of energy. He said that Amorim has said that they are lacking in energy, and that's something that's going to obviously be an issue from the start. But Gary Neville said I don't think he was just referring to them getting fitter. I think he was actually referring to them just running more, and the fact that the Sporting was such a high energy team and Man United aren't. And they worked really hard when they weren't in possession. And you look at Manchester United teams over the last couple of years, they just don't have that level of work that other teams in the league seem to have. And that was apparent obviously against Ipswich. And that's an issue that Amorim is going to have to try and solve during a season. I don't know how you solve that problem, by the way. Answers in the chat. I don't know how you solve a problem that, because I think we're all aware that we've been talking about. Look, I've seen teams like Brentford. I've seen teams like Brighton. I mean, I'm not even mentioning the Liverpools and the Man Cities and the Arsenals. I've seen mid-table teams like Fulham, destroyers for running. It's almost like you put a Man United shirt and you become dead arrogant, like you don't want to run. It's such a problem, and I don't think Ten Hag wasn't telling them to run. And I said for a long time, when you look at Ten Hag, he was trying to get them to run, and loads of them were getting injured. Now, did some of them not fancy it, or were their bodies not up for it? Either way, if you're Ruben Amorim, you're worried about that, because you're going, I need these players to run. Well, hello, Ten Hag needed them to run as well. They didn't, and a load of them got injured. So how do you change that? We've brought another manager in that wants his players to run, and they don't run. They didn't run yesterday, and they get tired. And you could see it in the second half that even at the end of the first half, we started off okay, but then you start to see Ipswich breaking. I mean, how many chances did Ipswich create from the old cutback? You know what I'm talking about. There was one in the second half, he didn't quite catch it. There was the one where Onana made the great save, where the old Man United cutback was there in evidence again. And what's the old cutback? It's where midfielders lose their runners and a player breaks from the midfield for a cutback shot. And we saw that again as well. So I don't know how you get players that don't run. And believe me, there are plenty of managers that take over and say, oh, I can't believe how unfit these players are. It's such a cliche. I think Mourinho might have said it after Van Gaal. It's a way to take a prop at the previous manager, and it's a way to buy you more time. I think Amorim could say it, but I don't think it really would be a pop at Ten Hag. I think it'd be a pop at the players, because it's not Ten Hag that wasn't trying to get these players fit. It wasn't Ollie that wasn't trying to get them fit, and it wasn't Mourinho that wasn't trying to get them fit, or Ranić. Everybody was trying to get them to run more. They just wouldn't run more. So I don't know how you get them to do it, especially halfway through a season. I think it's going to be really, really interesting. He was asked about whether there were any red flags, Gary Neville. He said, look, any red flags that were there yesterday would have been there for the last few months and the last season and a half. And they're very difficult to, move away from that. What I think Gary Neville said, which is what I said this morning, he said, I genuinely believe that what Ruben Amorim said at the end of the game, no player goes out onto the pitch and wants to lose or doesn't want to win or work hard or do well. I think this is something I said this morning, and I do agree with Amorim and Gary Neville on this, funnily enough. I don't think that these players, it sort of goes back to the lack of work, the lack of energy. I don't think any of those players don't want to run. I don't think any of those players aren't running on purpose. I just don't think they're fit enough or they're good enough to do it. I think we've got to stop saying that. We've almost got to stop glowing these players up, saying they're not working hard enough. They're not, they're not trying hard enough. I just don't think they're good enough. I don't think it's purposeful. I just don't think they're actually good enough. I mean, I'm not naming names here because you could say there's 5, 6, 7, but consistently over the last 18 months, the Fulhams, the Brentfords, the Brightons have outrun us and outplayed us. Ipswich outplayed us as well. It's not just running, their passing was crisper. So that's an IQ issue. It's football IQ. That's my new word, I know, but it's football IQ. It's as simple as that. There is no other way of putting it. It's not about lack of effort. It's about lack of quality. He goes on to say, you look at the way they played yesterday, Ipswich were near the bottom, who look more organised and better coached. They look like they've got more appetite for one game, more enthusiasm. And that's been a constant for the last few years. It's not just a red flag for the Ipswich game, because the same things we've seen in the last 6 to 8 months, 10 months, we saw yesterday with Amorim. He's got a big job on his hands, but he'll have recognised that yesterday, and it will get better in the next few weeks, because that back five that he picked will change, and the wing backs. So, yeah, I think Man United are an average team, as we know. He was also asked what would success be between now and the end of the season. Now, considering Gary Neville said last week about top 4, it's quite interesting and good that he's changed his mind, because he said success would be to see a team that's really got enthusiasm, energy, confidence and a fighting spirit. Getting those players together with some sort of level of understanding. And I would agree with that. But he said, I don't think you can talk about trophies or top 4 at this moment in time. It would be arrogant to do so, even though United have won 2 trophies in the last couple of years, which I think is absolutely spot on. I don't think we should be setting any expectations other than the next game. I think we just got to take it game to game at the moment. He was asked about who he thinks would be the big winners from this system. He said if Luke Shaw stays fit, he'd be straight into the team. Mazraoui as well. But obviously said where you fit in the likes of Rashford, Garnacho, Bruno is going to be very interesting, because you've got obviously other players that can play up front. Did we see a more positive United? I don't think we did. I don't think we saw a more positive United. I mean, I said it. I don't hold this against Amorim, but I think yesterday's performance out of all... I mean, look, if you think about Ten Hag's first game in charge, was that Brentford or Brighton? That was shocking. We lost. But I think when it comes to this season, yesterday would not have been one of the best games of the season so far, would it? Kevin says, when Agate came on, we controlled the midfield more. I think the partnership should be Agate and Mainu. I completely agree. Patrick Martin says, in my opinion, it's about man management. No players want to run. You have to make them want to do it, says Patrick. Dane Jane says, I feel we need to target a new centre-back. Just going back to that, I don't want to gloss over that one. What Patrick Martin says is spot on. I like to have a solution. I think we all do, which is why I asked you for your solutions about energy, how you get these players to run more. I purposely asked you that because my solution would be this, and I nearly forgot to say it. So, Patrick, thank you very much. If I'm the manager of Man United and I want my players to work more, or if I'm the manager of anything and I want my staff to work more, I don't just say it'd be nice if you worked more. It'd be nice. I incentivize. It's as simple as that. Now, incentivizing can be fun. If you do this, I will give you this, bonus, etc. Incentivize can be not fun. If you don't do this, this person will be given a chance, and if they do that, you will be out. Now, I wouldn't be giving any of these players a bonus. I wouldn't be saying to these players, if you start running more, I'll give you a little bit more money, because they've already got enough. So I would be saying, if you don't do this, I'm going to give it to this player. And if this player does it, you're out. And what will happen is the player that gets kicked out will either down tools completely and be fucked off, or it will be the kick up the arse that when you give them a chance again, they actually do it. And I think the problem that Ten Hag had, in a very easy sentence, is favouritism. And even when he took players out, he'd put them straight back in. There was never any accountability. He'd only do it like, look at Rashford when he dropped in for the Palace game. He was back on after an hour. Look at when he was taking Rashford off for the last 20 minutes. He was starting the next game. I think that if you want to use Rashford as an example, I would be giving him the chance. And then when he doesn't do it, I would take him out of the team for Rasmus or Ahmad or whatever position you're talking about. And then when they do it, I would be saying they're doing it. So unless you do it, you're not getting your place back. And then hopefully he will do it. But you can't just go 20 minutes and then you're back in the starting lineup. You've got to do it. You've got to do it and you've got to mean it. And I think that's the only way. And that's what I would do. I'd be taking players out of this team who aren't doing it. And look, I know this probably won't happen, but if we get another Bruno Fernandes performance that's average or below average, I'd be taking him out of the team for Mason Mount. If Mason Mount plays better than him, I'd be starting Mason Mount and dropping Bruno Fernandes. And I think you've got to, and that sends a message to everybody as well. It's not always about the individual. What I'm saying is some people will be saying, well, let's drop Casemiro then, let's drop Rashford then. What if you drop Bruno and everybody sees you've done it? I think you've got to start doing that sort of stuff. It didn't happen under Ten Hag because Ten Hag had favourites. I think Amorim would be wise to remove favourites and reward hard work. Because, of course, if you remove favourites, they could be a problem in the dressing room and cause issues. But if you remove a favourite and you reward a replacement and you reward hard work, you will win the dressing room because people who are in the team will be happy with you. And the dissenters, they'll look at them and go, you're only doing that because you're not in the team. So he's got to do it soon, though. You can't start doing that when it goes wrong because you've probably lost the dressing room then. In my opinion, it's about man management. That was from Patrick. Dane Jane Official, thank you very much. Hope you're doing well. I feel we need to target a new centre-back in January. Most of our current centre-backs are either too old or slow and have a horrible injury record to play in such an intense system as Amorim's. I disagree with this. I think Gary Neville spoke about this as well. I don't know whether I can find it. I'm sure he said something about it. Where did he say it? He said something about Evans and... where was it? Yeah, he said this. Look, when you look at that team yesterday, it had a lack of pace, and I wasn't quite sure how they were going to set up to begin with. You got Mazraoui, De Ligt, Evans as a back three with Casemiro and Eriksen in the midfield, and you know full well that five at the heart of the team hasn't got the pace or the energy, and have got quite a bit of age between them. I think it was unfair to put De Ligt and Mazraoui into that conversation. I really, really do, and it sort of answers your question as well, Dane. That I think it's a cliche and it's a myth that De Ligt is not energetic. I certainly think it's a myth that Mazraoui isn't. I think it's unfair to put Mazraoui and De Ligt into the same category as Evans, Eriksen and Casemiro. I don't think Evans, Eriksen and Casemiro have got any pace. I 100% agree. But I think De Ligt and Mazraoui are very, very different. I think for me, that would be like saying Dalot and Yoro don't have any pace because you put them with Johnny Evans. As a collective, there's not a lot of pace, I agree. But as individuals, I think Mazraoui and De Ligt are absolutely fine. So do we need to buy another centre-back? Yes, because we're playing with three. But I'm quite happy with De Ligt, Martinez, Yoro, Mazraoui, Luke Shaw. You've still got Maguire and Lindelof. So, yeah, in the longer term, I think we will. I feel we need to target a new centre-back. That was that. Carl Middlecoop, thank you very much for your super chat there. Ryan, Jazzy Lee as well. Patrick Lynch says, we can have standards, but that shouldn't negate realistic expectations. We need to back a project fully and give it proper time. Short-term pain, long-term gain has to be the mantra. Exactly. And also, you know what? I really do think that when you look at it, that's exactly what Amorim is saying. You know, more suffering is coming, which is short-term pain, hopefully. And I think we've got to be realistic about that. Marcus Brown says, please make a video on Noosa. Why would I do that? We're not even linked to him. Good player, but formerly of Genk, now at Leipzig, but he's not somebody Man United are linked to at the moment. I know Brentford tried to get hold of him, but yeah, it's and I think Crystal Palace as well. But look, good player, but not a player that we've been linked to. United must never become a club aiming to scrape fourth. It must always be a club expected to win the title, and every player and manager must know it, says Red Army. Thank you very much for that, mates, as well. In my opinion, that was from Patrick Martin as well. The media make me sick, says Struggers FC. Keep your nose out of our club. Surely the club can do something about this. Leave the manager and the club alone, please, says Struggers. Well, it's a good point, mate. Did you hear what Amorim had to say after the game? He said, I've done more interviews in the last week than I did in a long time at Sporting. I now just want to be left alone to get on with my team. And I think that is hopefully going to happen, and it is preferable because he has had a baptism of fire at Manchester United in the sense that there was some brilliant interviews, but it has been relentless. He has a press conference, I think, on Wednesday, and he'll have one for the Everton game, and that should be it. That should be it now. There shouldn't be any, sit-down interviews with Amorim. It should just be post-match, pre-match, and let him get to work, because there's so much work to do now. And I don't think, as much as I like listening to him, I'm more than happy for it just to be a press conference every week. Players here 5 years or more must go, says Keel. Thank you very much for that. Mike JBA has gifted a membership. And Carl Middlecoop says, if you drop Bruno, who do you give the captaincy to? I don't think you pick a player just because they're the captain. God, I'm so tired. I think, look, De Ligt could do it. Casemiro's the vice captain. If Rashford's on the pitch, he can do it. I think Dalot could do it. I think Luke Shaw, if he was fit, could do it. Could give it to Onana if you wanted to. I mean, we used to give it to De Gea. So I think you can't keep somebody in the team just because they're captain. Not about being good enough. Top teams have stars like Salah, De Bruyne and Son who thrive under pressure. United lack that, and it's what they're missing, says Mikey. But look, I think when you look at it, and God, do we look at it? We pay the money for people like De Bruyne, Odegaard. We pay those wages. We pay Son wages. We pay De Bruyne wages. We pay Saka wages. We pay Odegaard wages. We pay the wages for these players. We just don't have them. And I think it's a good point. And this is what some people say, oh, you're always talking about wages. It's irrelevant. It's not irrelevant because you look at United's top earners and you go and compare them to what the names I've just said there. And it's like we are paying the money for players that we don't get in return. I think it's a good point when you look at the Sons of this world and the Salahs of this world and the Sakas of this world and the De Bruynes, even the Cole Palmers at the moment. Like what you get for that money, we don't get, and we should be getting that. And I don't know. Out of Casemiro, Mason Mount, Bruno Fernandes, I'm trying to think of every player that's on 250k a week or more. Casemiro, Rashford, Mason Mount, Bruno. Are any of those four players likely to hit the heights of a De Bruyne or an Odegaard or a Saka or a Son? And you're sort of left going, I don't know. And yet we're paying for four of them. We should be getting a lot more than that. One of our members said, Mark said it this morning, we pay Mbappe wages for St. Maximin type players. Yeah, I know people took offence to that or laughed at it, but it's true. I'm not being offensive, I'm being real. St. Maximin is a good player on his day. Is that not what United's best players are? On their day, they're still good. I mean, I've seen Casemiro have a good game this season, but it's not like De Bruyne. It's not like Saka. We're paying for them, but we're not getting them. Harvey Barnes is a good player. St. Maximin is a good player. But we're paying Mbappe fees for players like that. I don't think any of our players walk into Arsenal and become Saka or Odegaard, and yet we pay those wages. And I think, set yourself free. Our big problem is we overrate our players because our club has overpaid those players and sold them to us as fans as world-class players when actually they're just decent on their day players when they have a good day. What has happened to Newcastle? Isak is playing terribly. They're losing 1-0 to West Ham, aren't they? Which actually, if you're aspirational about top four, then that might not be a bad result for us. Thank you very much for that. I did just want to talk about... there was something else I wanted to talk about. I forget what it was. I just wanted to read a couple of Carragher's quotes, actually. He said, I still saw a lot of what we've seen, certainly this season with Man United. The intriguing thing is that it's slightly a different system, and I've been really impressed by the manager, how he speaks and how he comes across. Even on Sunday, he came onto Sky and speaks to Roy Keane, a legend of Man United, a guy who's captained the club and won everything, and he doesn't feel in awe of him. He's a young man coming to the Premier League for the first time, and he spoke really confidently. You look at him and you like the cut of his jib. He comes across really well, but the main question is whether he can get results on the pitch. It's not a great result at Ipswich, who should have won the game as a promoted team. There's lots of work on the way, but they should set up in a different way, and it should suit certain players. A lot of the current players at United aren't good enough to play for Man United, no matter what the system is. The fact that the new manager has come in is because it hasn't been good enough. Of course, he'll want his own players, but he will want players who suit certain positions, in particular the wing-back role, which at times can be a specialist position. He'll make changes over the next few windows, and we should probably judge the manager after 18 months when he might have brought in 10 players. Ultimately, United have to be competing for the title. I mean, I don't like the title bit, and I don't like whether he can get results on the pitch bit. But I do agree about the number of players that need to be brought in, and I do agree about judging a manager after 18 months. But I don't trust the media to do that, but I do trust our fan base to do it. I think you have to look at this at the end of next season and see where we are. And at the end of next season, it can't be we're winning the league. All I'm saying is 18 months for us to see progress. If we get an FA Cup and top 4, great. But 18 months isn't to win the league. We're talking about the end of next season, and he's only just taken in halfway through this season. So I don't think that 18 months is going to fly by. I think it's going to be long. I think the next month is going to be long because there's so many games. Can you stay the course? Can you stay on target? Can you finish what we're trying to start? And that's the question to Manchester United fans. I think you can. I think you can, because I think for the first time in ages, and I'm very grateful to Erik ten Hag and Ralf Rangnick and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Jose Mourinho. They had to fall on their sword and they had to be, sacked. But I think with each sacking, the focus has shifted to where it needed to. Mourinho was the one who got stabbed in the back by the players, but we didn't realise at the time. Solskjaer was the guy who befriended the players and they stabbed him in the back. Rangnick was the guy who spoke sense and the players didn't want to play for him. And then Ten Hag was the guy that the players worked for and then stabbed him in the back as well. And obviously, they're not always the same players, but the players are the dressing room, and the dressing room has remained toxic for many years. I think now, with Amorim, you've got a fan base that is ready to do what I did with Ten Hag. Through stubbornness, but I did it. I said, I will not sack another manager. I will not bury another Batman, and I will not bury another manager. And it was stubborn. And there was a lot about Ten Hag that really frustrated me, but I just didn't want to say Ten Hag out because I didn't want to let the players off the hook. And it did become stubborn. But I think a lot of people are probably going to be like me now. They're going to go, well, I know a lot of you are already. I refuse to be Amorim out. I refuse to do it because it's so obvious that the players have to go before the manager. And there were some people towards the end of Ten Hag who were saying I'd rather sack 6 players than Ten Hag. And I sort of get that. But the ship had sailed. He's going to get sacked. We all know the route. We all know the route. What we need to do is, while Amorim's safe, is push for the sacking of the players. Because the sacking of the players is the removal of the players. This is the most important thing. We need to change our mentality. We need to be long-term. We need to be patient. We need to accept that there will be bad results, but we also need to do the thing that needed to be done for a long time. Instead of sacking a manager, we need to sack some of these players. And to sack these players, that needs to happen now, not when the manager's under pressure, because that never will happen. The manager has got some time. We need to sack players now. These need to go. And I don't literally mean sack them. What I mean is, we need to be going, you're not good enough. You're not good enough. It's like that clip from The Office that I've said before where David Brent's there and everyone's worried about they're going to lose their job. And he goes round, you're not going to lose your job. 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 And that's sort of what we need to happen. And some of these players have got to go. And I spoke to you about a sacrificial lamb at the start of the transfer window in the summer. And we never got it. We need to see that. Scott McTominay was not a sacrificial lamb. Scott McTominay was an intelligent deal for a player that was valued by clubs outside of Manchester United, whether it be Fulham or Napoli, that we could get good money for, and it was homegrown. That wasn't sacrificial. That was about, a player that had probably hit his limit at United that we were ready to cash in for. And same with Wan-Bissaka. There were willing people to take him for a price that was right. A sacrificial lamb is getting rid of the problems and doing something that the club's not been good at. Hi Mark, just curious, when was the last time one of our players received a 10 from you in the player ratings? What's the criteria to earn it, says Killen. It has happened. I know I gave it to Ronaldo once, but I have given a 10 a few times. I just can't remember who the last time I gave it to. I have given a 10. I can't think. I know I definitely gave it to Rashford when he to Ronaldo when he scored that hat trick. It might have been against. Who did he score the hat trick? Was it Spurs? Shoo! I used to love those days. It was good fun. I can't remember. I probably have given. I have given 10 a few times. I seem to feel I gave a 10 to somebody like, it wouldn't have been Mainu because I can't imagine he's given a 10 from midfield. But I have given it. I mean, look, 10's not. Some people say a 10's impossible. For me, 10's not impossible. You've got 6, which is average. Well, you've got 5 below average. We see a lot of that. You've got 6, which is average. We see a lot of that. 7 is good. 8 is very good. 9 is superb. And 10, I think, is, you couldn't ask for anything more. It's perfect. So I'm not afraid to give a perfect 10 because I think it should be aspirational. I think it should be achievable. I just haven't seen it enough. But you know what? You make a good point. You make a good point, Killen, because I want to throw this back to you. Like, how many times do we give people an 8? If 7 is good, how many times do we give people an 8? And yet, if you're a Man United fan, that's just not acceptable. And yet, if you're a Brighton fan, you're probably giving plenty of 7 and 8s out every week. It doesn't make sense, does it? We're not holding our players to a higher standard than Brighton because they don't ever achieve it. So it's the same for Fulham. It's the same for Brentford. It's the same for Newcastle. It's the same for Aston Villa. It's the same for Chelsea. It's the same for Arsenal. They're giving 7 and 8s out to 5 or 6 players every week. I just don't remember the last time we gave 7 or higher to any of our players, really. It just doesn't happen that often, and it should be happening. It's incredible to me that it doesn't really. Okay, Casemiro had an 8 for first season. A lot of 8s first season, says Vicky. It should be achievable. I mean, look, if we were doing player ratings back in the late 90s or the mid to late noughties, I remember watching those games. You'd be regularly giving people 7s and 8s. You would. I mean, look, you think about some of the games like, well, that Berbatov hat trick probably would have been a 10, wouldn't it? It's not. It was a common theme under Sir Alex. In fact, it was the other way. You very rarely got players playing below a 6. Average was seen as a bad game. Like it's something that we need to aspire to. I believe Amorim can do it, but he's going to have to be given. He's got to be given free will to remove players and then replace them. Absolutely. Thanks everyone for watching. You're absolute legends. Great start to the week. And of course, we'll be back with you tomorrow as well. Please do subscribe. Fantastic community as ever. I've got to say I'm encouraged. I'm very excited that we're playing again on Thursday as well. Those international breaks are great for conversation, but God, you need more games. And we need more games. And I just wanted to say as well, just before I go, I'm not being wrong here when I talk about Bodo Glimt. They're not actually a bad team, are they? They're top of their league in Norway, 59 points. But also, somebody said to me they're actually quite an energetic team. And that bodes quite well. I think they'll come and have a go. Their season is only just finished as well, so they're not going into a period of stagnation. They are 12th in the Europa League with 7 points, having won 2, drawn 1, and lost 1. They're actually ahead of us because we've won 1 and drawn 3. So I think it could be quite an interesting game on Thursday. And I'd expect us to win, but I think if they're about hard work, it could be just another Ipswich. You think he would bench the stars for youth, says Shan? I think he's got to try everything, mate. I think that's the whole point of change and more suffering. We've got to try a lot of things before we land on it. Jason Day's a member. It's a great show, Mark and the mods. Thank you very much. Jason Marsh with a super chat says, great show with Tony O'Neill. Really good. Proved that what good guys you both are. Thank you, Jason. And do check that out if you've not listened to it. It was a really, really compelling interview. I really enjoyed it. Back in the morning at 10 o'clock. Thanks everyone for watching. We've got a preview for Bodo Glimt tomorrow as well. Lots to get involved in. Thank you very much for watching. Stay safe. Take care. And I'll speak to you all tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Take care.